everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Warm Up Podcast. I am so excited today because I feel like I'm going to learn about a completely different kind of industry and another really great way for activism here with Kayla Anderson. She is the social media and communications lead for Climate Replay. They are a gaming kind of industry, and they're taking over to bring climate change and environmental issues to the forefront of the gaming industry as a whole. So, Kayla, I'm so excited to have you here today and would love for you just to do a quick introduction before we dive into more conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for inviting me to be on this podcast. And I mean, a little bit about me. So, as mentioned, I do a lot for Climate Replay on the community communications and ideas for social, and then help lead the team in that direction to get content engagement out there. And I mean, there's so many things I could get into in pockets of what you would like to know. So just let me know. We can go from there.
Yeah, I feel like this could go so many different directions. So I'm just really excited, I think, to introduce our listeners to, this completely different avenue of getting involved and being an activist and just inspiring through a completely different environment. Like we hear a lot about getting involved in outdoor cleanups and signing petitions and voting and everything. But this is another really cool avenue to take if you want to get involved, and gaming is for you and that's something that you're passionate about. So I'm really excited to just introduce so many people to Climate Replay. But I wanted to talk a little bit at first just about like your background and what has led you to working for Climate Replay. So have you always been passionate about climate change and environmental causes, or like what kind of sent you down this path?
Oh man, so I grew up in Southern California, and being along a beach city, you are raised with take care of the ocean, doing trash cleanups, and just being a good steward to the environment. But it wasn't until I got into college where environmentalism started really taking shape for me and the way I move throughout the world. I took this class for environmental justice when I was a sophomore, and we got into deep roots of environmental racism and environmental injustice and way laws create things like Cancer Alley in Louisiana. And I was mortified, realizing that there's so much going on in the world. And a lot of these things aren't talked about. So what happened from there, at the time I was live streaming on Twitch, which is where my username Bayla comes from. It was a joke from a friend, and the username wasn't taken. So Kayla is Bay, she's Bayla, and thus Bayla on Twitch was born. And it's just stuck as it rolls off the tongue. It's super easy to remember.
Yes.
It also helps that there's a Bayla Targaryen in House of the Dragon, and dragons are kind of my thing. So
okay, I love it.
Yes. So with Twitch, I started talking about things I was learning in college regarding environmental politics and justice and climate action, law, all those things. And it turns out there's an audience for that on a platform that is known for gaming, which was phenomenal. So I went from being a League of Legends streamer to someone hanging out in the politics category, doing some debate stuff, and also educating my community about environmental and climate issues. And it's just kept going from there. 2018 was when I really dove into it, and now it's 2022, and I've spoken at a few universities, helped found Climate Replay, and on a climate creators list thing, which is pretty cool. So it's been awesome, and realizing that there are so many people that want to learn, but you just have to reach them where they're at, which I think is where a lot of science communication hasn't, up until recently, it hasn't been very productive in making your average person understand what's going on, or in different niches of like hobbies and interest, and reaching those people where they're at. So, which is a passion of mine.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like that fully plays into like when I came across your account on Twitter and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to her because like the fact that there is like such a passionate like sect of like gaming about climate activism was like, I have to talk to her about this because it is a different faction of like people who are passionate that like you don't always straight up hear about because it's just like not the, leading group of people that are talking about it on social media or whatever, but it's a whole nother group of people that may have questions they want to learn. You want to like have a place that's accessible to have those conversations. And I wanted to even go a little further about when you were talking about like, starting to stream about this on Twitch. For anybody who doesn't maybe know what Twitch is, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and like how it works. And then I would be curious to know, did you have maybe like reoccurring themes or things that like kept coming up that you were like, oh yeah, I had a lot of questions about this, or like this was something that like we were commonly talking about on these threads?
That's a great question. Yeah,
Yeah.
so to answer the first bit, Twitch, for those that don't know, basically YouTube but live, and
Okay.
for way longer. So YouTube videos you have anywhere from what 3 minutes to 2 hours, depending if you're watching a movie breakdown documentary
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
some just fun meme videos. But with Twitch, it's a platform where people know it as the gaming live streaming platform. So you watch people play video games, talk to their community, and it's a great place just to relax, hang out. And it's expanded dramatically over the years now. So we have the politics category, there's cooking categories and podcasts and science. And it's just a place for creators, scientists, everyday people to come online, do something that they are really passionate about, and build a community around that.
Very cool.
As far Yes, it's super great,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to get back into it. But with my day-to-day schedule is not accommodating of
Fair.
carving out a few hours for live streaming right now.
Fair.
um, as far as specific questions that came up, the ones that were most common were, what can I do?
Mm.
How do I get started? And, well, what can I do that will make a difference? So elaborating more on the first ones, like, so what can I do, but will it actually make a difference?
Yeah.
And where do I even begin? It's because starting is the hardest part of anything, right? Whether you're like, I want to go to the gym, then you're like, well, I don't want to go to the gym. But then once you're at the gym, it's easier. And I could say the same for just starting to learn about any topic or getting involved in anything. Is the hardest part is figuring out where to begin. And so we've had so many conversations on Twitch about different ways you can begin based off where you're at your
Mm.
current stage of life, whether with work or interest or hobbies, location, family, friends. You
Mm-hmm.
as an individual, what is your own emotional capacity? Because climate and environmental advocacy can be really, really heavy. And
Yeah.
we've seen on TikTok, especially, a lot of the trends like hashtag eco anxiety. And so, really happy there's more conversation around it. But at the same time, with that being a trend and a lot of conversation, there needs to be resources and understanding that not everyone can just suddenly go and, for example, go out to Puerto Rico
Yeah.
and start working on these things.
Yes.
So it's a lot, but
Yes.
yeah.
I feel like that's a common the common trend that we see too is, we'll see people coming in. We always say we kind of talk to the beginner. Just like with our company and everything, it's like a very beginner place to start because we do see so many people that are really overwhelmed. They're like, well, I know this is happening in the world. I know this is bigger than myself. Does it, like, I'm one person, can I actually do anything that's going to make change? And like, what do I do? Because I could look at any environmental issue and there are so many, and now I feel like I'm overwhelmed because there are way too many for me to choose from. And how do I even get involved? And now I feel like I'm spreading myself thin because I'm trying to do 8 different things for all these different issues. And I feel like people want to like jump right in and get really involved, but it can be like, it's too much. It's just too much for any person to handle. And when you're consuming that level of even information, it can just like overload your senses and your emotional capacity is just like out the window. So I'm curious too of like when you were having those conversations, what were some of the like key tips that people had about like where you start or like what you can do that people felt like really made a difference, but were potentially at like a local level or something that's like sustainable for people?
Yeah, that's a great another great
I
question.
know.
So the biggest thing was that I would advocate for is just start where you're at.
Hmm.
And that for some people, being in a 9 to 5, for example, I work in economic development as my day job. And so being in economic development and also being a digital marketing manager in economic development, I control the narrative for my day
Yeah.
job's voice. And so there's sway in being able to host climate conversations amongst the staff and say, we're not going to stand for this.
Hmm.
What can we do? Even if, so there's, things behind the scenes where you have to work with certain people
Hmm.
and that type of stuff and to not step on toes. But there's still ways that to host those conversations in the workplace and get people to understand. And even though it may feel small, we can look at maybe even in retail for if you're a barista or if you're a food server, there's so many things that you can talk about regarding food systems in the workplace. If does your restaurant compost?
Hmm.
Are things recycled? Hosting those conversations where you're at is extremely powerful
Hmm.
because climate touches every industry and every process in
Yes.
our entire economy. And so no matter where you are, you can make a difference. Sometimes you just got to get a little bit creative. And
Yeah.
it's always interesting talking. I remember distinctly I had one audience member a while ago that was mentioning, I just serve coffee at Starbucks. What can I
Hmm.
even do? It's like,
Hmm.
well, you can have a conversation about composting coffee grounds. Do you have, even if it's not for the entire chain, what if you compost coffee grounds in your store to feed the plants in your store?
Yeah.
Um, and very little things can create an impact. And when other people see that you're trying and these little things work, it inspires more action. And the great news on that, and I can't share the location or anything, just for the
Sure.
person, but they were able to do some in-store composting for their
That's
plants,
amazing.
which was super cute. And when they came back a month or so later, like, hey, we talked about it, and manager was totally cool with it. Like, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
And so little wins go a long way, and then it can inspire others when you tell your story. So
Yeah, I love that. And that's even, even if it's just that one local location of that store, it's like, and who knows how many people are coming in that might see that or might see her composting and putting those grounds in the plants. And like, then they think about doing that at their home. Or, then they'll be like, you know what, I want to advocate for this at the Starbucks near my house. Or, it could just become this chain reaction of thoughts. You just never know what seeds you're planting when you're making those steps or having those conversations, and who knows how high those conversations might end up going at some point. That manager might tell the regional manager, and that regional manager might tell someone else, and it could really grow into something bigger. You just never know until you take the chance and like have those conversations. So that's really awesome, and I love those tips of just, yeah, starting where you are. And I think a lot of the biggest impact is local, and it can build from there. But so much of what we can do is like, within our neighborhoods, within our circumference, in our towns. So I think that's great advice. And I think that perfectly kind of leads into talking about climate replay and like where the inspiration for that even came from. And yeah, just tell
yes.
me about the origin story and like how this came to be.
So how you reached out to me on Twitter, Corey found me on Twitter from everything I was doing on Twitch. There was a Medium article that someone had wrote about me, and he saw that,
Very
connected it to
cool.
my Twitter, and thanks. And he reached out saying, hey, I have this idea. Do you want to help me start this? And he was talking about the connection of video games and utilizing the gaming community to mobilize them to address climate, because so many people play video games.
Hmm. Hmm.
And even just on Twitch alone, there is a huge culture of charity and philanthropy.
Okay.
For example, I believe it's late spring. There's a whole month long event for St. Jude, raising funds for St. Jude's
Oh,
Children's
wow.
Hospital. Yeah, massive event. And there's an organization called Tiltify, which connects with charities and, well, yeah, charities and organizations So to help them get connected to live streamers on Twitch to raise funds. So for myself, I've done 2 charity streams for Water Aid America
Very cool.
over, and yeah, it's super awesome. And the thing that's so great about it is regardless of your audience size on Twitch, you can just start fundraising for organizations that you believe in. So we understood that the gaming community is already very charitable and wants to help. And the next step of that is let's take this energy and dump them into the climate space effectively. And from there, more people came on. And I remember the slideshow Corey showed me. It was so the very first slideshow, and we were rolling through it. And I'm like, all right, so this is, I like the idea, but we need to clean up your slides. It's like, I understand you're not a graphic designer, so it's okay, but we gotta clean this up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. And the team has grown. I think we have about 15 volunteers.
Wow.
So we're all a volunteer team. We all do this outside of our day jobs.
Okay.
And everyone is just so lovely and wonderful. It's been really great. So
Okay, so we launched in 2021. So you're like a year into this. And what does that look like? Like, first off, I guess you did touch on this a little bit about like gaming, how gaming and climate go together, with just everyone being very philanthropic and very passionate and everything like that. So like, what has the reception been? Like when you launched Climate Replay, like what have the first, events or the first projects that you have launched, like what has the reception been? Is it exactly what you anticipated?
it's been better than we
Okay.
anticipated, especially with us being a volunteer team and just
Yeah.
putting in time where we can put in time. I'm I'm still thrilled that our Discord community, so for those that don't know what Discord is, it is like Skype, but significantly better.
Okay.
And Discord launched as a gaming communications tool, but then once pandemic lockdown, a lot of people actually started using Discord to create virtual classrooms and everything for their like college classes, high school
Okay.
classes. That actually happened to me since lockdown happened in midterms of my senior year of college. And it was one of those, well, let's make a Discord server, y'all. This would be a lot easier than dealing with Zoom. And
Totally.
so they rebranded, I believe it was last year or 2 years ago now, from we're just for gamers to we're for classrooms and just Skype, but better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So our community lives in Discord, and every single day we have like question of the days, sharing vegan and vegetarian recipes with one another, sharing climate news, talking about actions that can be taken. And this is something that we are very intentional about, is that if there is not cozy news, which is one of the tags we have for when we post news, like this is not cozy, we always try to offer a solution for it. So we were recently discussing what's going on in Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, so this is not cozy, but here's what you can do about it. So it's not just the world is ending, just go, don't care about anything. Because if you talk about these things without expressing what you can do, that's where you get into deep eco anxiety and dread
Yes.
and nihilism, and it just goes
Yes.
on and on and on. But events and things that we've done, we're actually currently reshaping what we call climate quests, which is, so gamer lingo, go on a quest for the climate and you gain your points and you can redeem them for art and emojis and
Love
stuff in
it.
our Discord server. Oh yeah, our artists are lovely. Like Ami and Mariana are phenomenal, and they have designed Big Leaf, our capybara mascot, with so purple capybara with a little leaf on his head.
I love
Super
that.
adorable. Yeah, I love all the little memes we have of capybaras that flood our Discord channel now. But so we have things like Climate Quest, which could be show us a vegan meal that you cooked and you get 3 points, or fill up a trash bag of trash on your walk and you get 5 points. And so we have a leaderboard to make it competitive, and people have loved it, which has been
Oh,
great.
cool.
Yeah, it's just gamifying day-to-day things for the climate. And some things that we have also done are climate cafes. hosting a space where we can talk about where we're feeling with climate and just checking in with one another. How are you doing? Do you need anything? Or we haven't really seen you around lately. Like, are you okay? Do you want to or where can we also pull our resources to help others get their climate initiatives going? Do you need support with organizing this thing? Cool, we know people, and going from there. There's a bunch of other stuff that we've done, but I could like game jams. We've done a few live streams. Of course, our NFT guide for research and a few news article things related to that once the NFT guide, not guy, launched. Interviews and discussions and all of that, of course.
Yeah, this is just incredible. Like I love the idea of because we try to like do giveaways and challenges and things like that to like incentivize, right? Like everybody wants to win something cool or get points or like there's just something about us, like our innate desire to like get trophies or like awards and all this stuff. So like being able to like do that and make it fun, make it a game, but it's also doing good for the planet is so genius to me. Like I think that's so smart to do it that way. And I know you listed off a bunch of different things, but I'm curious if you want to talk on like the initiatives, the main initiatives of Climate Replay, and if there's like tiers or like prongs of that you focus on. So I know that we've touched on like research and community that are big for you, but I don't know if you want to kind of go into a little more detail of what that might look like.
Yeah, so research and community is the direction that we're really fleshing out at this time for Climate Replay. Community being keeping our Discord server engaged, hosting discussions, educating people, and of course the climate quests and cafes, all that happens inside of Discord. And then on the research end of things, Corey and Mariana were the big leaders for our NFT guide, which we released several months ago. It was early, I think it was around April or May, close to Earth Day. So it's been a few months now. And research is something that our entire volunteer team has gotten really excited about. What's something that we can look at, research it, and then publish our super casual, I guess, white paper on the subject to not only educate ourselves, but educate others in a way that's not jargon.
Yeah.
And as someone that has an environmental science degree, it can be really easy to get stuck in jargon. And that's something that we're trying to really address with all of our forms of communication. So if you go and read our blog posts on our website, it's very memey and very sassy. And one of those things that we try to make it so everyone can understand it instead of super sciencey technical terms. So our goal with research is to take something complex that interests us and break it down, not only so we can understand, but others can as well. And we have a few things in the pipeline I can't speak about right now, but I'm excited that for once they get released, it's going to be great to have this another wave of here's our next document. Hope you enjoy, internet.
Yeah. I'm curious too, like for that. So who would you say your demographic is? Like who is your demographic on Discord, or like what does your Climate Replay community look like the makeup? And then when you're doing all of this research, like do most of you have environmental degrees or a background in something like that? Or is it just, a few of you do and then other people are just super passionate about it? Like what does that look like? What's the makeup?
Yeah, healthy mix of a few people that are directly involved in climate or have climate background and research, and then others that are just, I really care about this. Let's make it happen. And it's so great because and at the end of the day, that's just, you don't have to be an environmental science degree holder or a practicing environmental scientist to care about our planet, because our planet is our planet. So and I hope people find that encouraging when they look at our team and our community and realize, oh, this isn't something super far out of reach. It's just people that really care.
Yeah.
And we just need more of that. We need more empathy and more people that really care, in my humble opinion. As far as our community demographic goes, we're currently sitting at about, I think, 400 people about in our Discord server. And you notice that it's age-wise, it's kind of like late teens to mid 20s, I would
Okay.
say, is like the thick of it. So we have a lot of folk just starting college, we have a few people graduating college, and then outliers here and there that have come in and just are either, I worked on this thing and I want to share this information with you, or I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, but I found you on the internet and you seem like great people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you feel like a lot of people are more like the layman terms of like, we're just beginning and like we're talking about all of this at like a very beginner level versus, more highbrow where it's like, oh, we all know what like climate doomism is and all this stuff, or is it more like an educational tour? It's like, hey, I'll teach you about what eco anxiety is, or, like let's talk about how things impact like water in the West and things like that, or what's happening in Puerto Rico. It's like more accessible from a beginner stage versus like I could talk to this with my coworker and we know because we are in the environmental space. I would assume that it's more the accessibility option of it, like beginners talk.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. There's a lot more beginners talk. And then but we don't shy away from the deeper conversations. So
Yeah.
there are people that because on one hand, you don't want to sit in beginner land forever.
Yeah.
So we do encourage deeper conversations so that way folk can feel challenged and also not get complacent.
Yeah.
um, which is something I believe, I forget his name, but he spoke about this at Climate Week, New York City, yesterday, talking about we can have all these conversations, but if we're having these same exact conversations 5 years from now, that's not good enough. We need
Yeah.
to have these conversations now, and then 5 years from now, have different conversations because the actions and everything needed today, we have completed 5 years from now.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of conversations like, what is the impact of plastic pollution? What about these oil spills?
Mm-hmm.
Or is methane really bad?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people didn't know about methane, so we've talked about that. And from the surface level, then there are people that will ask deeper questions. It's like, okay, well, since you're asking, we'll answer. So on that, I guess, is an important clarification. So we're not forcing people into the deep end of the pool. It's when those
Right.
questions arise, we don't shy away from them. Because if it's like, oh, we'll try to dumb this down, it's not fair to our community, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. It's like, if you're willing to ask a complicated question, we'll do our best to give you the complicated answer that you can understand. But we're not just going to say, oh, super basic thing. We'll try to explain how it works.
I feel like that's the perfect kind of mix though of like, okay, we'll have some entry level things, but also some stuff that is more advanced because our community is this like mixed melting pot of people. And then I feel like it gives people the opportunity that maybe if they are kind of on the beginner end of things, that they can read through all of that and like learn and start to like absorb that information, find articles, dialogue, things like that, that will help them, expand and start to grow and learn more, which only allows them to elevate further and become,
Yeah.
more advanced on these topics. So I think that's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I'm just very intrigued by the community building aspect. 'Cause like that's, part of my job too. And I'm like, this sounds so incredible. I'm like, I need to go send this to all of our wildkeepers and be like, go join Climate Replay Discord right now, immediately.
It's
This is
like, go
fantastic.
steal their secrets.
No, honestly, just like such a cool space for, people to be talking about this and to be challenged and encouraged and to be able to ask questions and in a safe space where people don't have to feel like they need to be really, really passionate and like know everything. But they can come into it as a beginner and be like, I honestly don't know what I'm doing, but I think that you guys are a safe place for me to ask these questions and you're going to help me figure it out.
Yeah, and that's something I really liked how you mentioned, it's a safe place to ask questions. And that's something that we need more of.
Yeah.
As when I graduated college, and I do intend to get my master's degree. I'm actually actively searching for programs right now. The trajectory I'm looking at is sustainable cities and climate policy in regards to city
Amazing.
development and all of that. But there's in some spaces, it's not okay to ask questions that others assume you should know the answer to.
Yeah.
And I think that's an experience a lot of people share, especially among our team. And we don't want our community members to feel like a question is stupid. And with moving forward with that of all questions are welcome, I mean, provided that you're asking a genuine question, right? But we have yet to get any trolls going
Yeah.
in there and trying to be like, is carbon actually bad for plants? Like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
that stuff like that. But there's no stupid questions if you're asking something genuine. And that's how we approach it. And we do our very best. And if someone on the team doesn't know something, then it becomes, how can we help this person find the resources to answer their question? Do we know anyone in our network we can connect them to? Can we get that person in our network in the server to talk to this person? And just doing our best to make sure that people feel heard and empower them to feel okay to answer questions. And also by offering resources of research and tools to dig into things that they're interested in, empower them to go further and also start looking into these things themselves once they kind of have their guiding light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like that's very common too, where it's just like, oh, I just don't know where to go to like learn about this, or I don't know where to research it. And like, not everyone, I guess, maybe is as comfortable like just taking that initiative to like go deep dive into like, Google Scholars or something like that. But if you provide them with some resources, then people are like, oh, like I feel like I could go maybe look this up, and now I know how to navigate that. And I know some words to maybe like look for keywords and things, that you're empowering them to like become their own little mini scientists, to do research and to learn, and then be able to advocate and share that information out with the world. But not everyone is like that kind of go-getter from the jump. I feel like being able to provide the resources and kind of, yeah, like you said, the guiding light can be super valuable. And I'm curious too, because you kind of alluded to this, but I wanted you to talk a little bit more about like the different angles that Climate Replay is utilizing to support different climate change organizations, or like if you have different initiatives, like what that looks like.
Yeah. So we have a lot of things that we can do, and we're figuring out which is the one that, or which is the couple that really stick. So
Yeah.
we have done, I think we've done about 2 live streams, or was it just one? But we have the capacity to do live streams, to host conversations. We actually did a live stream, I think it was the British Red Cross.
Okay.
Several months ago. That might have been in 2021, actually. And that was one of our first collaborations with an organization. They reached out and were like, can you play a game with us on Twitch and talk about what you're doing? And so we have the capacity to do live streams, of course, podcasts and interviews.
Yeah.
And within our community, mobilizing around initiatives. So we actually have events and like notifications you can have at the top. And we're currently featuring one of the petitions to stop a pipeline in the United States. And so we have that up there and let people know this is the current thing we're rallying against. Please go and sign and participate. And so we can get our about 400 member community behind things like this. And that's something that's also, we do our best to be aware of, is not doing too many things at once. So we could have 5 different petitions going on and 5 different issues talking about it, but then that can lead to a sense of overwhelm and start falling apart. So when we talk about petitions and initiatives like that, we try to stick to just 1 or 2, so that way we can have deeper conversation and push people forward.
I saw something on there about creations. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so for creation, as you'll see on the About section of our website, one of the things that we really dove into is the concept of game jams. And for those that don't know what a game jam is, it's a dedicated amount of time, sometimes a week to a month, or sometimes a little bit longer, depending on the nature of the game jam, where you get teams together to build a video game. And in our community, we decided, let's do a game jam on a climate-related topic. And so we had a poll for solar punk, regeneration, renewable processes, and a couple other things. And so the community voted on what topic that they wanted to focus on. And I believe the one that we settled on was regeneration. And from there, you take this one idea and then start saying, how can we make a video game around this? And we had some people develop a game where you're rewilding with flowers or you're cleaning up oil spills. We had someone that, well, I think they were actually trying to make this their own game, so I won't share it so their idea isn't stolen.
Yeah,
It was
that's
very,
fair.
very adorable. And so using things that are common in gaming, the gaming space and the gaming community, and then just putting a twist on it. Like, let's talk about climate. And something that we're planning for the future, potentially this year, or will more than likely be something in 2023, will be a mod jam. And a mod is, modification for a video game. And the idea of this is create a mod for any game to make it about climate. So how would you modify Grand Theft Auto to be about climate change? Or how would you modify League of Legends to be about climate change? And to really drive home the point of climate climate does and can touch everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. Thank you for touching on that because I thought that was so interesting. And yeah, hearing about creating entire games as a community, what a cool way to get involved and just like share in a project with other people. I think that's so fun. And I wanted to touch again off the website. If you want to talk a little bit about the NFT guide and like the idea of it and how it came to be. But also if you want to share like the definition of an NFT for anybody who hasn't heard of it. I think it's a very hot button topic right now, like in the environmental space. It's really interesting. I feel like there's lots of different kind of takes on them. Lots of passion behind them, I feel like. So I would love for you to just like introduce our listeners to what an NFT is and then talk about the guide.
Yeah, so an NFT is a non-fungible token. Hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly. Non-fungible token. And it's super technical if we're going to start talking about blockchain and Ethereum and Bitcoin and all those things. But it's one of those online, what's a good layman like example for this? I've heard so many, but I have yet to find one that has really resonated with me.
Yeah,
where,
like I feel like Nike created a virtual Nike design of a shoe. They only make one and then somebody buys it and that's like the NFT of it and no one else can get it. Is that
and so you have like this one super special thing, but it lives on the internet and it requires a lot because it's on the internet and with the nature of the current version of the blockchain and that whole space in general, it can be very power consuming. And you get into the conversation of the hardware to run these servers or the computers managing all of this. And that gets into the environmental concern conversation. And at the time that the NFT guide, the idea came about of we should address this. This is before everything collapsed and people started panicking about their ape images and everything. So we'd released it at the time when there were a bunch of gaming companies saying we want to do NFTs, we want to do Web3, we want to do all this. And us being in the gaming space, it's like, well, how can we talk about this? One, from a stance of not just NFT bad. Yeah. Because it would be very polarizing, but we also don't want to not say anything. So at the end of the day, we did release a pledge that industry game folk can sign that says that they're not going to be developing NFTs for their video games or participate in that. So that's where our stance is. Yeah. But the guide itself, the goal of that, and again, huge props to Corey and Mariana for putting it together. They spent so many hours researching it, and the rest of the team were like, let us know what you need. We'll send stuff your way. And then they just piled in on it. It's wonderful. And so when we released that, it was this moment of, okay, we did this thing, and oh goodness, we'll see that hopefully it doesn't cause too much controversy. But so far, it's been really great, just how it's been received and the conversations that it sparked. Surprisingly, to my knowledge, we haven't received any "How dare you
Mm.
like you climate people." It's like no, it's actually pretty well written, and makes the case of, I think in one section we talked about how just the current version of the blockchain. Well, I'm starting. Actually, we'll cut this because I'm starting to get into the details of it. I've read the original 100 like something plus page document, and I know our final version was adjusted for like sake
Okay.
of length and like time
Yeah.
for everyone. So I will just scrap all that. I won't get into the details of it because some things that weren't published were published for very good reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting too because it's starting to come up more and more, even in like not even in the gaming community, but just like with, everyday companies that are talking about NFTs and wanting to acquire them, wanting to create them and all this stuff. And, even just talking about the most basic and not diving super deep into it, but just like the wares on energy sources and things like that to create them. I think it's really important to like have some sort of conversation around the impact of wanting these, creating them, supporting it and all of that stuff, and just what it looks like, what that entails. Because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, this is the new trend. It's cool. Everybody wants one. I want in on it too. And you don't really think about like the impact or like what's happening behind the scenes for those things to be created or supported and all of that stuff. So I think that's something that caught my eye just because I was like, oh, this is something that like our team had talked about last year. And I was like, well, I don't know that much about them, but everything I'm reading is that it's very controversial and it's not good for the planet. So I think it's a no for us, but I don't know that
Mhm.
much. So the fact that there's an actual guide that was created to say, hey, this is, am I wrong to say that the guide just kind of like gives different tiers of like impact and stuff, or is that not right? I didn't read through the impact. I didn't read through the document to its fullest extent, but to be able to like have some sort of tool that's talking you through NFTs and like the space itself, I think is really valuable because I haven't seen that much of it.
So our NFT guide, in it, we acknowledge that the majority of NFTs use Ethereum or Ethereum sidechains,
Mm-hmm.
which making it super dependent on Ethereum. And at the time of writing, Ethereum was still using proof of work with an annualized electricity consumption, which is on the scale of a medium-sized industrial nation.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty, although Ethereum, I think as of last week or 2 weeks ago, they were talking about merging and changing the way that they operate. So we'll at some point update it and run the numbers and figure out what that would look like. But we keep it focused on the facts
Yeah.
and on, so it's kind of technical, but the language in which it was written at the time of writing, we feel is accessible for the majority of people, especially in the gaming sphere,
Yeah.
with the language that we use. And we do open the guide up with what is the blockchain, and we have our cute little capybaras
Yeah.
to help guide you through the way of learning about this. So,
Yeah. I feel like, if you're seeking out deeper context on NFTs, you probably have at least some know of like what it entails anyways. I think getting into anything like that would be pretty complex for someone who doesn't necessarily know anything. But yeah, I guess all in all, I wanted to say like, hey, for anyone listening, if you are still interested in NFTs or like, want to know like what's the deal with them, I feel like this guide is a great place to go and like get information and just like learn about them if that's something that you're interested in. And maybe you hadn't heard about, the potential impacts of them, or the energy that it takes to create, run, utilize any of these kinds of, facilities, resources. So I would highly recommend going and checking out the guide on Climate Replay, just because it's very well put together and it caught my eye very quickly whenever I was looking through things. And I don't know much about NFTs, so it was very, interesting to me because I was like, well, this has come up in conversations with our team too. And just to see another take on them, it was great. And obviously awesome that you're just providing the facts like, hey, this is just what it is. You take it for what it is. You can make your own decisions. We're not going to sway you in any way or the other, but like this is the science. These are the facts.
Yeah.
Take them or leave them. And I think that's really important to do. And I'm curious too of just beyond this, like what are, and if you can talk about this, I don't know if you can, but like what are some of the research projects or like some of the realms that you have your eye on for like future projects?
It's a great question. So with our future research projects that will be coming out over the next few months to years, the goal of all of it is going to be centered around climate, the impacts, whether we're looking at supply, usage, all the things. And as we did with our NFT guide, it's our mission with it isn't to be pointing fingers and saying you all suck and you're all terrible and we hate you. It's going to be, here's what this looks like. This, if something is bad, it's like, yeah, this is bad, but also offering the solution of this is what could be done. And if we ourselves personally don't know, then it's bringing in experts that could put in their input on, yes, this is like what could be done to make it better. So we want all of our resources to be informative and still offer a solution in the same way that we host our conversations in the community. If something's not cozy, always offer a solution, because otherwise it's just, I'm going to go sit in a corner and cry.
Yeah, you're just sitting in it.
It's a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I'm really excited to see what more comes out. Like I said, I'm going to be sharing this with our Wildkeeper community afterwards. Like, go keep up with this. They're doing amazing.
Yeah.
You're going to learn so much. So this is so great. And I really appreciate you taking the time to just sit with me and educate me on terms and things where I'm just like, well, I don't know what this is, but I'm so intrigued by it. It's amazing. So I have a few wrap-up questions for you before I let you go. And I'll start with, where can people find you online? You, if you want to plug yourself, and then obviously Climate Replay.
Yeah, so Climate Replay is super easy. It's just climatereplay.org. And if you go to our contact page, then you'll find the link to our Discord and our social channels, all that fun stuff. As for me, as an individual person on the internet, you can find me at my handle, I'm Baela. Literally just I am as in Mary, Baela. And that's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok for that handle. And then my professional name, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, because you're, I don't know, want to talk science or something like that, Kayla Anderson on LinkedIn, and you'll find me.
Perfect. And then my last one that I always love to ask is, what does keeping nature wild mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. Keeping it beautiful, I think, is what it means to me, especially growing up in California and now living in Washington State. Taking care of nature, cleaning it up, making it a place that you want to come back to, and treating it with respect, I think, is what keeping nature wild means to me, because Earth is our home and we really got to start doing a lot better by her. So
Yes, well, I think you're doing amazing things and connecting with so many people. It sounds like such an incredible community. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get on there and join it, even though I'm not a gamer. I'm going to come and hang out in the climate Discord. But
yeah, even if you're not a gamer, like if you enjoy meme lingo for things, as that's at the end of the day, like what the gaming community is just sass and memes and putting like yassifying things to make it easier for the folk on the internet to understand. So if that's your jam, even if you're not a video game human, Climate Replay is for you. So don't feel intimidated about it being
I feel like this should be the title of the whole episode. It's just like yassifying nature, like yassifying climate change.
Oh, that would be great. I mean, if you look at our blog, I mean, it's so sassy. And Tom, our author, he just says I want to get him on TikTok. I really want to just have his dry British humor be on TikTok. Yeah. But I'm like, I'm in the United States and you're in the UK. So whenever, not very likely, but I'm in a high chance, because the two programs I'm looking at are in the UK or in Sweden for a master's degree. Because unfortunately, the United States just doesn't have the specific path that I'm looking for in the sustainable city stuff, whereas the UK and Sweden have near identical programs for exactly what I want to do. So it's like, well, if I end up in either of them, I'll be around the climate replay team. But if I'm in London, then I can harass Tom and be like, okay, so you need to be on TikTok because I just love how dry
Yeah.
and British your humor is, and everyone's gonna
Everyone
love it.
would like go for that too. Like people be like, yes, this is amazing, and I need to
Mhm.
subscribe to this immediately. I will be one of his first subscribers if he
Mhm.
does. So. Oh, well, Kayla,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope everyone listening learned a lot and is now going to just go flock over to the Discord channel and join in. But yeah, I can't wait to see more of what Climate Replay does. I hope that we can connect and talk about more ways that maybe Keep Nature Wild and Climate Replay can work together in the future too. So
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you. So glad to have had you on here. Learned so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.